Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Michael Noland here. You know, I've covered basically at this point in my videos 2 bands, haven't I? First of all, I'm talking about what's covered in my Fab 4 Foray playlist, and that of course is the Beatles. A playlist of me covering what I know about the Beatles, my favorite band of all time. Now of course I also have another playlist, and we're calling that Classic Rock Corner for now. But if you've noticed, I've added a subtitle to that, and I call that Olympian Level Bands. As I've said in past videos, I hold a certain number of bands to a higher level. And you may have noticed that I've alluded that if the Beatles were Zeus, Led Zeppelin would be Poseidon. Now, as far as the band I'm gonna cover tonight, this was almost a coin flip for me. First of all, I hold both of these bands in equal esteem. And after the tragic death of John Bonham and the hole that was left by Led Zeppelin, both the Police and Queen rose to absolute extreme levels, not only in popularity, but in creativity as well. Now, with Queen's catalog being much larger and them being on the scene earlier, I had to give the nod to Queen. I mean, just think of this band. One of the world's greatest lead singers, one of the world's most fabulous guitarists, a drummer who could be the lead vocalist in any other supergroup while delivering extreme chops, by the way, and a bass player, the quiet one. You know, the one who would write #1 hits for them when their songwriting led the band into more esoteric ways. They could always count on John Deacon to write them a hit or two. And of course, that's another reason why I would choose this band over the Police. Where all members of the Police wrote, mainly it was Sting. But with Queen, for the first time, really, if you think about it in rock history, 4 members and 4 world-class songwriters. Okay, so first of all, what I want to do here is explain something to you. In my last video, remember I said I was rather late getting on board with Led Zeppelin. I was a little hesitant. I was more of a Beatle fan when they came out, but once the Led Zeppelin bit, it took. But that's not true with Queen. You see, I saw them earlier in their career at Winterland, San Francisco, and immediately the next day went out and bought their current album, Queen 2, as well as their first album, Queen. And as quick as I would be to buy a brand new Led Zeppelin album when it came out, for example, as when I mentioned Physical Graffiti, right? I was just as quick to go out and purchase Queen's newest album during those years as well. Of course, a couple of years passed after I saw them at that first concert in San Francisco. They released their magnificent A Night at the Opera, and once again in the East Bay, this time in the comfort of a not too large theater. Me and a friend got to see them pretty much perform A Night at the Opera from beginning to end. So tonight's video is just kind of an introduction to this band, and of course, as with all of these Olympic level bands, I'll be doing videos further on them as well. So what I thought I would do tonight is give you a quick overview of my 3 favorite albums by Queen, and at number 3 would be their 14th album, Innuendo. Now we'll go further and deeper into these albums in future videos, but what I wanted to bring up about this album is that this was the album where, after some turmoil within the band really truly gets together. It's during the recording of this album they know that Freddie Mercury is dying of AIDS. But it's also during the recording of this album that Freddie Mercury is absolutely dedicated to showing up when he can and to nail these vocals, telling other members of the band, "You can finish it when I'm gone." But this album does not rank number 3 on my list because of that sad story, I assure you. No, when I heard this album, when I first bought this album, I gotta tell you, I thought to myself, finally, they're back. There was a period in Queen's career that I wasn't that much of a fan. Oh sure, every album they put out had some totally great songs, and I bought them, but I found myself really not playing them. I remember them using synthesizers and keyboards for the first time after years of bragging on their album, No Synths. But on this album, Queen returns to a more organic and wonderful collective sound that I was used to on some of their earlier albums. And here's another thing, for as sick as Freddie Mercury was during the recording of this album, these songs are a collection of some of his very best singing. If this album came out at an inopportune time for you, and you were a Queen fan and you haven't really listened to this album, sit back, put your headphones on, and get ready for a ride. Now, I didn't mean to fool you into thinking that if you read left to right that you would know where I was going to go next. No, it's just that the album Queen 2 looks better centered. Number 2, best album by Queen for me was A Night at the Opera. Now, this is the album that would be at the very top of most people's list, and deservingly so. Lyrically, this album was a bit of a departure for Queen. Not that they weren't tilting to these more serious types of lyrics, but here on this album, we hear of doom and gloom, of false prophets, as well as their precise thoughts on certain lawyers that the band knew. Now, I'd have to say that this is perhaps Queen's most eclectic album. A near runner-up would be Sheer Heart Attack. And by the way, Sheer Heart Attack was the runner-up for the number 3 position, in my opinion. I love Sheer Heart Attack for a lot of reasons, but I did have to nail it down to 3 for tonight's video. But the wide variety of styles of songs on this album, as well as the variety of instruments chosen to represent these cuts, this album is magnificent. But you know, as wonderful as Night of the Opera is, I've got to tell you, for me, it doesn't even hold a candle to Queen 2. When I first purchased this album, first of all, I opened it up. Very nice cover, right? But it had a gatefold, and now you opened up and you realized that this front cover extended, that these 4 figures were standing, and it was all black. When you looked at the inside of the gatefold, it was them in white with a white background, some of them wearing feathers. Then you would fold that and you'd bring your album out. And what did it say on the actual LP? Side 1? Side 2? Side white. Side black. Okay, so I'm being a little dramatic here, but this is the way I felt when I first saw this album. And they didn't just name these sides, side white, side black, just to be arbitrary. No, side white had a collection of more delicately put together songs, a bit more ballad oriented than second side, and side black with the darker, heavier rock material. Now, there's elements of both on both sides, and that to me told me that Queen knew what they were doing. The whole album is an exercise in yin and yang. Side white has elements of side black. Side black has elements of side white. White representing good, black representing evil. Good versus bad. This was an album that specifically raised questions that my young mind wanted to entertain. And to be honest with you, I wanted to know what the band thought of these things. It's on this album that we see Queen could write as esoterically as Led Zeppelin. Here was a land of fairies, of ogres, of black queens that would march upon the white queen. And not only were there ogres, there were ogre battles. This was not an album you took apart. This was an album that you played from track 1, side white, to the last track, side black. Now, of course, Queen would go on to continue to record wonderful albums, but I find it interesting that they hit this very pinnacle, this height of songwriting and production on their sophomore album. An album, by the way, that although their first album was okay, Queen 2, for me anyway, made me totally forget they even put out an album before that. The long and short of it, guys, is that when I heard Queen 2. Here I found expectations raised, and with very few exceptions, Queen always managed to rise to the level of my already risen expectations as a fan. Okay, so that about covers it in this video. I do want to remind you, I'm in the middle of my review of Led Zeppelin albums, and I'm right in the middle of getting my video ready and shot for Led Zeppelin 2, the band's second release. Now, the only reason I haven't already shot that is usually when I do an album review, I like to take a few days after I've got the video kind of squared away in my head, but I want to re-listen to the album. And in that way, I'm able to give a more immediate response while I film the video. So that's what I'm up to now, guys. And don't worry, Beatle fans, I have not forgotten my review and comparison of Rubber Soul and Revolver, my personal two favorite Beatle albums. And of course, you may have been seeing names coming up here, popping up in front of me, and that of course are any new subscribers that have joined the tribe. A big thank you. Subscribership is way up, and the response to my videos have been wonderful. And the comments that I'm getting, my goodness, some of you are really keeping me on my toes, and I appreciate that. Do you know we are nearing 30,000 views? That doesn't happen unless somebody is sharing our videos. And if that is you, we want to give you a big thank you and give yourself a shout out while you're at it. If you know anybody who's interested in this kind of content, please feel free to share our videos, of course. And if you've been considering subscribing to the channel, it is so easy. I know, here it comes. All you have to do is hit subscribe to the tribe and then hit that top bell notification, and you will be notified of all future videos. All right, well, that about covers it. I want to thank everybody for watching. This is The Bottom Line. I'm Michael Noland, and we'll see you in the next video.